Good morning. Thank you for all coming today to hear this important topic. I have been studying nutrition and children since 1999, and I officially got into the business of it in 2002 when I started my own business helping parents detect and manage food sensitivities in their children. And I teach pediatric nutrition at the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition, as well as Body, Mind, Spirit. I've written both these books on the physical and emotional well-being of children so that everybody can understand the full picture. Today I can just give you a little bit of information to open your eyes to the possibilities. In 1945, a dentist by the name of Dr. Weston A. Price wrote a book called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. He wrote that book after 10 years of traveling the world. He was examining tribes and Eskimos and Indians and Aboriginals. He was in Scotland, Canada, Australia, went all over the world and studied these cultures that were not eating white man's food. And what he found is that their nutrition was sound. Their teeth were perfectly straight, no crowding, no spacing. Their faces were broad rather than sunken in. And the parents didn't need help with managing their children's behavior because there were no behavior challenges. None. Can you believe it? No tantrums, no disorders. And what he found in these societies is that on average, only 1% had disease in them. Only 1%. And this is back in 1945, where there was less disease than there is today, but it was still very, very significant. And in his book, he took all the pictures he had taken of these children's straight teeth and all of his findings and laid it all out. At the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition, we use a textbook that is based on all of his studies and all of his findings. And basically what happened is he even noticed that people had spent 2 to 3 years in those primitive societies. They'd spent 2 to 3 years preparing for childbirth. So a man and woman said, we're going to have a child, and they had to eat a special diet for 2 to 3 years to prepare that mother's body and the father's body to make that baby. Nowadays, we hear about someone saying, yeah, I just found out I'm pregnant. You know, it's very different. We don't plan. Now, if I were to say to someone, we need to plan 2 to 3 years in advance before we get pregnant, what do you think they would say to me? They say, I'm not doing that. But what we can ask people to do is try to spend a year preparing their body, even if it's just the mother's body, to carry that baby. And one of the things she can do is hair analysis. So she can take her hair, and there's one lab in Ontario that even a medical doctor here at the show, Dr. Zoltan Rona, uses. And you send the hair in for hair analysis, and it shows any heavy metal toxicity, any vitamins and minerals that are deficient, and it also shows ratios that show you whether things are out of balance, whether the adrenals are out of balance, because if the adrenals are out of balance, that can be passed on to the child. If there's heavy metals in the mother, that can be passed on to the child. If there are vitamin and mineral deficiencies, that can be passed on to the child. So when a baby's born, if we look at that baby, we say, oh, they're so perfect. But yet, they're not perfect. They have inherited their parents' toxicity. We don't like to think of it that way, but just when you're here inquiring about this, it's good for you to know that they don't just come in at a perfect start. So we can prevent our children from coming in with these different nutritional challenges. So if we were to say to a mother, go get hair analysis done, or go get your blood tested and just find out what some of these deficiencies are before you conceive a baby, that would be ideal. When we have a mother that's in pregnancy that is having morning sickness, that is a sign that things are not working right in her body. It means she has hypoglycemia or candida, both of which I can talk further about if you're interested. If a mother gets stretch marks, that's a sign that she has a zinc deficiency. If a mother has a miscarriage before even bringing the baby to term, that could indicate hormonal imbalances. And if a baby is born with birth defects, that can be a nutritional deficiency. So all of these are signs, right as soon as the mother's in pregnancy, that the baby is not going to necessarily come in with everything they need. So a baby's born, and sometimes in the labor process, they're given antibiotics. 1 in 3 babies today are given antibiotics in labor and delivery, believe it or not. And those antibiotics can contribute to a mother not having enough good bacteria. And when a mother doesn't have good enough bacteria, she also passes that on to her baby, and that creates symptoms in the baby. So if a baby has cradle cap, or a baby has colic, or a baby has excessive spit up, anything like that, a diaper rash, we look at it all and we say, oh, that's normal. That's normal. We see that all the time. It's actually not normal. Those are symptoms, and that's something that we need to address before the symptoms turn into conditions. I'll give you an example specifically to diaper rash. So a baby has a diaper rash. If it's just one diaper rash and it's not that severe, no big problem. But say they have a lot of diaper rashes, or say they get that raw diaper rash, then it's time for the parent to look into what is going on here. It might be a food sensitivity, it might just be not enough good bacteria. But say the parent can't figure it out. Then what happens is the diaper rashes get more frequent or worse, and the diaper rashes can turn into a condition. Sometimes it turns into eczema. So suddenly the baby has eczema all over their body, or maybe just in certain parts of their body, because the parent didn't know how to address the diaper rash. If the parent doesn't know how to address the eczema, then that can turn into a worse condition. So often we see eczema turn into asthma. So that is how the body continually tries to keep communicating with us. It starts when they're tiny infants and there's a nutritional deficiency or a deficiency in good bacteria. And if we don't get on top of it, it escalates into more symptoms, more conditions, and then eventually those conditions, if they're not taken care of, can turn into disease. If you think about anybody you know that has cancer, that wasn't born with cancer, they've always had pre-existing conditions or nothing at all. And when they've had nothing at all, it's because their immune system is completely shut down. So if you are going through life and it's been 5 years since you've been sick, that's not a good thing. I know a naturopath that actually helps people get sick because it will help get their immune system going again. You want to get sick and you want to get over it quickly, and that's the sign of a healthy immune system. So now, what's different about our world compared to these primitive cultures that Weston Price studied? We now have processed foods. We have pasteurized milk. The pasteurized milk takes out 22 digestive enzymes that we as humans need to digest milk. So we don't properly digest the calcium in our milk because it's pasteurized. Even all of our foods that have sugar in it, it's white sugar. It's not the unrefined, health-giving sugar, such as honey or maple syrup. So the world is becoming more toxic. I was doing a seminar at the Waldorf School, and there was a teacher there, older woman, that taught in the 50s. And she said, everybody that I taught in the 50s, they always showed up to class. They were always there. Nobody was sick. I mean, occasionally, but it was very, very rare. She said, what's happening today? And it's these things I'm talking about. It's this toxic world that we live in. And what I find amazing is how resilient the human body is, that we can handle all this toxicity. And the more we do with our health, the more we can handle the toxicity. So I was talking about there being more chemicals in our diet, in our water, in our air, and I was talking about there being, the processing is not so healthy for us. But what can we do for our children to make them end up healthier?